The Sadducees.
And I thought they didn't believe in like certain very basic.
This is where we're going.
Yeah. Okay.
It's basic themes like what?
Things like the
Resurrection of the flesh.
resurrection of the flesh, and the heaven and hell, or something like that.
Wow, those ideas sound remarkably Zoroastrian in flavor.
Oh, so you're saying the Pharisees brought those in?
Oh, well, I'm telling you, they
and they were
I'm telling you they
the
did.
Persians.
Test the claim.
So you're asking? You're saying you've been reading some stuff about
Well, I've been
Zoroastrianism.
coming across more and more stuff about it. Like I'm very interested in ancient history, and it always connects a lot of I'm always looking for evidence of God and things like that. Of course, I'm Christian, so I have that perspective. But I'm also very open to looking at ancient civilizations, and they say that the cradle of civilization was Sumeria, right? And that's what's known in the Western world. I don't know if you agree with that, but when I was watching something, it was talking about in Sumeria, the god of Sumeria was called Marduk. The high god of
what's going on here?
What's going on? Oh, okay. Is he a
Bit of action over here.
yeah?
A bit of handbags. No,
No, he's got a flag in his hand.
it's an Algerian flag.
Oh, Algerian flag. Oh,
I might have to turn my camera around in a minute.
well, it's okay. I think it's calmed down. Oh, all right, that's why I was saying we should move from here, maybe.
But why? We would have missed all this.
Yeah, huh?
We would have missed it.
Well, what I was saying is, are you familiar with Marduk? Because you seem to have the view that Zoroastrianism is like the first monotheism and the first religion, right?
Not the first religion.
No, but
No.
the first monotheistic religion.
The oldest one that we have records of that still exists.
Okay, we have records of. Okay, so then does it go back to Sumeria? Does it go back that far?
So first of all, my understanding of Marduk is that he is definitely a Neo-Babylonian god.
That's right.
So he was the main god of Babylon when the Persians conquered Babylon in 539 BCE.
Okay, very good that you mentioned that date. Do you know the name of the guy who was involved in that conquest?
Yeah,
Huh?
you know I know.
Okay, can you tell me?
Cyrus the Great.
Oh, was it Cyrus the Great? Okay, got you. That's great. So he was.
Yeah,
the
he's
one-
mentioned in the Bible 26
of course
times.
he is. But then Sumeria, I think, was. I thought that Sumeria didn't. How long did Sumeria last? When did Sumeria end? Like the Sumerian Empire?
Well, the reason why Sumeria is famous is because it's the old. I believe they have the oldest writing.
Yeah, that's right. That's why it's called the cradle of civilization. Because
And-
they say the writing started from Sumeria.
Well, they say that the oldest. The examples of this very old writing in Sumeria are like record keeping. So there are like clay tablets with records
cylinders
of.
and stuff with the inscriptions.
Well, there are it's just like clay tablets with records of trade,
Got you.
right? So they're like of
Receipts and
stock, receipts, these kinds
Okay.
of things. Yeah.
So,
But that's far earlier than the Persian conquest of Babylon. So the Sumerians were long gone by then.
Sumerians were long gone by then. So the Marduk, this god, which pantheon or what was he associated with? Was he just like a pagan god, or?
He's a pagan, so he's like the sky father for the Babylonians.
But they had nothing to do with Zoroastrianism, the Babylonians.
Not, they had nothing to do with Zoroastrianism until they were conquered by Zoroastrians,
Oh, okay.
or by the Persians who brought Zoroastrianism with them.
I see. All right. So, excuse me, guys. Can we just do a video here? You guys take it over. Can you take this somewhere else, man? I'll just. Bro, you guys are in the video now. We're trying to make a video. He and I. Can you guys move? You guys brought this guy here. Why is he selling?
He's free of.
Hello.
He's a free soul.
Hello.
Hold on, let it play out. Let it play out. Let it play out.
He's in the camera.
حفوني مز ذاك الامارات انا جزائري
عيط عبد الوهاب يعيط
عيط الزبدي وقزاني شنو الناس كل مافيا hello 999
I think on a day like this, it's better to avoid all this stuff. Anyways,
Yeah.
So because it's hard to have a conversation with this.
people actually killed
You don't have that many conversations here, though. From what I've seen, it's debates that you have.
Well, yeah. So when I have a convection, it's nice. Not
I thought I'd take the
people fighting
opportunity.
in front of us.
Yeah, I thought I'd take the opportunity to show you in the. Sorry.
Sir.
We're
You're in
just
our
filming
camera.
it.
Can you guys move
We're
this
filming
over?
here.
Yeah,
We're filming.
we're having a debate here. Yeah.
I also wanted to take the opportunity to show you in a different light.
Oh, okay.
But
Well,
having,
no,
I've having a
had-
chill conversation.
Well, no, contrary to what you might think, I've had some very chill
I know.
conversations.
But not many of them get caught on camera.
Some of them have. Though.
Okay, good.
But the fact is that I debate Muslims a lot, and it's very hard to find good conversators, Muslim conversators. So, anyways, just interested in finding out a little bit more about, because I've seen a lot of positive things in the history about Zoroastrianism. They've been kind of wherever they conquered, they kind of let people follow their gods, their everything. As long as they were paying the taxes and stuff.
Not only did they allow people to continue to worship their own gods,
Yeah.
where there were significant local gods, they would actually venerate the local god. They would even they would purport themselves as representatives of the local god. So, for example, when Cambyses, the son of Cyrus, conquered Egypt, he went and supplicated at the what was it called? So they worshipped the Apis bull in Egypt at that time. He went and he presented himself as the earthly representative of the sun god.
What year
for
was
example.
this?
This was like within maybe 20 years of the previous
Oh,
the
okay, so it was
conquest
in the
of Babylon.
500 BC.
20 or 30 years after that.
Because that's kind of close to, I think, isn't that close to Moses' era?
No.
No.
This is about 1,000 years later.
1,000 years.
But that's
Moses wasn't 50.
it was like 1200 to 1500 BCE. Now, you see, I described the Zoroastrians as monotheists, but Persian policy under the Achaemenid dynasty expressed monotheism in a peculiar, perhaps a peculiar way.
Ibrahim have a kursi. The sheikh, he wants kursi.
I'm sorry, what was
Yeah, he wants a chair.
a chair?
Yeah.
For whom, sorry?
Abu Ibrahim, the one.
We're just recording at the moment,
Okay.
but once
He's
we're...
tired standing. He's got,
Who's that, the gentleman with the red...
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I found him to be quite rude to a few people over there, so I'm not gonna just go over there and give him a chair, to be honest. Yeah.
Thank you for being straight.
He was just...
great.
He
Why
was
would they assume that they can just come here?
He was
and do
dragged
this?
into someone else's conversation, and then just started telling the guy to shut up, so that he could give his 2 cents on it, and I didn't like that.
Because you have a chair, they can just come in. Wow. All right. Interesting.
Okay, so especially coming to a place like this, you speak to people who, for example, follow what they describe as monotheistic religions, and then their understanding of what it is to be a leader of a monotheistic movement expect from their leader to go and smash all the idols of all the other gods that are worshipped by other peoples.
You must be talking about one particular one, because there isn't, because as far as monotheist goes, as far as I know, there's Zoroastrians call themselves monotheists, and if you talking about the main ones, you'd say Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. And we know Judaism never really went conquering, and we know Christianity never really went to any Muslim countries and destroyed their mosques, even though they conquered a lot of Muslim lands.
But we did talk about Christians burning duelists. Well, Gnostics and
let's,
so on.
if you want to go to that topic, we were talking about the Catholic Church at that time.
Yeah.
And if you're gonna say Catholic Church is synonymous with Christianity, I would say that's more of a political office
Okay.
than a religious one. So that's my answer.
Well, to get back to my point, so specifically Cyrus the Great, when he conquered Babylon, it was established that the outgoing king, but I think it was Belshazzar or Nabonidus or Nabonidus.
Yes.
He was
Nabonidus, that's the guy, yeah.
He was supposed to supplicate at the temple of Marduk, but he had fallen out of favor with the local priests.
Why?
And the local temple. He wasn't specifically, he was not performing his
I just found out what he did yesterday. So it's interesting.
Okay, you might know
brought
something
it
I
up.
don't know.
I know what he did.
Specifically, he was not performing his responsibilities at what is called the Akitu festival,
Which was for Marduk.
which is specifically for Marduk. It's an annual
right.
festival,
And
the king has to. One of the rituals is that the king must receive a slap on the face until he's brought to tears.
what? I don't know about that. But let me make one point about
I
this.
don't know if that's Akitu specifically, but it's one of the Marduk temple rituals. Sorry.
Wow,
go
okay.
ahead.
With this guy, what's his name?
Nabonidus.
Nabonidus is hard to say sometimes. Nabonidus is the guy that I found out yesterday. I was watching a very informative documentary about this whole thing. And it's this guy, what he did, instead of worshipping Marduk, he didn't go to the festival and he started worshipping, guess who? The other deity of Babylon, called Sin, which is the moon god of Babylon.
There was also Ishtar was also one of the.
Yeah, but he was following, but
he was following Sin.
Sin.
Right.
So it brought the whole circle for me, because I've been saying this at the top of my voice, that Islam worships the moon god Sin, and he's also called Hubal, because in Yemen area he was known as Hubal, but in the Babylonian area he was known as Sin.
Right.
So now that was something that I was very curious about, because that moon god worship goes straight back to this guy. And it's very interesting because this is now part of history, that this Sin god existed there and was followed by this Zoroastrian king who wasn't supposed to be following him.
So no, sorry, not the Babylonian king. You mean?
Sorry, but
Yeah.
What was his connection to Zoroastrianism though?
Whose?
What's his name?
No, Nabonidus didn't have a connection to Zoroastrianism.
Nothing.
Cyrus did.
Yes, of course. So,
So-
wasn't he a king after Cyrus?
No. Nabonidus was the king defeated by Cyrus.
Defeated by
He was
Cyrus.
the incumbent king of Babylon
Got you.
and got conquered by Cyrus.
Okay. Sorry, I was mixing him up with.
No problem.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay.
So Cyrus famously, and if you've read, if you've read anything about the Cyrus cylinder, this famous artifact that was uncovered on the ancient ruins of Babylon.
Where it says he's the king of this, he's the king
He's
of
the
that.
king of the world, pretty much.
And it also mentions all the countries he's king of.
And then he pronounces the repatriation of all the captives.
Yes, he does.
So the famous narrative in the
Bible
Jewish Bible or in the
is about
Christian Old
him
Testament
sending the Jews back.
about freeing the captive
It's
Jews.
interestingly, in the cylinder it says God has asked me to build him a temple in Jerusalem.
I don't know if he mentions Jerusalem in the Cyrus cylinder.
Yes, I don't know if it's in the Cyrus cylinder, but it is in the history of Cyrus, mentioning that.
No, he does. He lays the foundation for the second temple.
Well, but he also says that God has instructed him.
Oh,
to
no,
build
that's in, which book would it be? Could be like the book of Nehemiah, something like that.
I really can't give you the reference because I just was watching something.
Ezra,
and I didn't take that
Nehemiah,
down.
Isaiah, those are the books that mention Cyrus most.
Right.
So Cyrus went and supplicated, prostrated at the temple of Marduk, despite the prophecy in the Old Testament that he will go and lay waste to the Babylonians. It appears to me that Persian policy at that time, in terms of tolerance for the religious traditions of their conquered peoples, but also in terms of statesmanship, in terms of empire building, they would go and ingratiate themselves to the people. They would go and present themselves as representatives of the local gods, to legitimize themselves. What Cyrus did by prostrating at the temple of Marduk was saying, I am the legitimate king of Babylon, not a foreign king
It's like
bringing his
Obama
own.
saying he's Muslim or something.
I see where you're coming from with that analogy, but it's not. This was a pretty new idea for that time. This was
No,
a
it's
revolutionary idea to
I mean,
an
for
extent.
that time, I was very surprised, by the way, that they were that liberal about these matters, because most of them in those days, if I conquered your country, your people are going to follow my God. That was the deal.
Well, not only that. So, for example, the Assyrians, when they destroyed the temple in Judea, took the elites of Jewish society and took them to Babylon and kept them captive there. They basically cut the head of Jewish society, of Israelite society, by taking the elites, the priestly class, the wealthy families, and taking them to become captive in Babylon. They left the remaining people in Judea kind of headless in a way, leaderless.
Yeah, leaderless.
Also, many of them found themselves seeking refuge further south as well, and some of them went into Egypt. And there's some interesting stories about them. So Cyrus went. Not only did he prostrate at the temple of Marduk, not only did he fulfill the king's responsibilities in terms of the Akitu festival, also he repatriated the Jews to Judea and rebuilt the temple of Yahweh. So what he was doing was appropriating these all-father religions, because they were the ones that lent themselves most to monotheism. These were the ones that were considered most fertile for reformation. So you may not believe this as a Christian, but in terms of academic, secular academia, there is lots of scholarship which points to the idea that the Persians reformed the Jewish tradition. Even to the extent, Lisbeth S. Fried...
Now, you
Ezra
told me this before, and
Yeah.
I want to bring this up, and now we are getting close to our subject of Christianity and the Bible. So you said that the Pharisees were all actually Farsis.
Not that they were Persian per se, but that their
But
thinking
their
was Persian.
thinking was Persian.
So-
Is that why they were called Pharisees? Is that what your
This is
argument
my hypothesis.
Okay, because it's like it's like Mahmed is not Muhammad. It's like Mahmedin. Whatever. So it's kind of like that analogy, because it sounds like Persian, doesn't mean. Now, if
yeah.
you can come up with something historical that says that Pharisees were actually Persians, then that would hold a lot of water.
Okay, so as an example, and I asked this question personally. There's a guy called Dr. Robert M. Price. He's a double PhD Bible scholar.
Okay, I'm not familiar with him, but I think you mentioned him before.
He's
wrote a book or something.
He's wrote tons of books.
Yeah.
He appears on podcasts occasionally. One in particular was a podcast called Myth Vision. And while they were live, I sent a question in asking him about his understanding of Persian or Zoroastrian influence on the Jewish tradition. In particular, through the Pharisees, this rabbinic sect that emerged in Jewish society in the Second Temple period, also known as the Persian period. So my claim is not just a linguistic one. He said the Pharisees were the Zoroastrian Jews.
He said that.
He said that.
Okay, now what he based it on, you've given one reference, and this guy, I don't know him, and I'm sure he's a smart guy, and he might have reasons for this.
Yeah.
But I'm trying, because I don't know that this is a fact, I'm just trying, and I'm not saying I'm disputing this, I'm just saying I would need a little bit more
There are a
background
number
on
of
this,
smoking guns.
where we can connect the dots, per se.
So there's much more. There are many more potential arguments here. So, for example, the Pharisees were kind of head to head with another rabbinic sect called the Sadducees.
Yeah.
The Sadducees were the priestly elite. They were the temple rabbis. They were the scriptural purists. They were the purists. They only took what was in the scripture. They were less inclined to follow the oral tradition. Okay,
The Sadducees.
the Sadducees.
And I thought they didn't believe in like certain very basic.
This is where we're going.
Yeah. Okay.
It's basic themes like what?
Things like the
Resurrection of the flesh.
resurrection of the flesh, and the heaven and hell, or something like that.
Wow, those ideas sound remarkably Zoroastrian in flavor.
Oh, so
Oh,
you're
it's-
saying the Pharisees
Well,
brought
guess-
those in?
Oh, well, I'm telling you they.
And they were
I'm telling you
the
they did.
Persians.
So
Oh,
the-
okay, I can see. Okay, see, it's interesting that it might be a remote possibility, but so far from what we have gathered, you could go in that direction, but you would need a lot more pieces of evidence to make this a solid case. So, if you were taking this case to court,
Yeah.
you're trying to win this case might not be very successful.
Right now, it would just be
With the-
my
with the
opening
evidence
statement.
that you have.
It's just my opening
Oh,
statement.
it's your
yeah.
opening statement. Okay, so are you saying that you have some very damning evidence?
The prosecution will
preponderance
rest.
of evidence.
The prosecution would rest after at least 50 pieces of scholarly evidence. As in, I can bring like 50 papers or books of scholarly works that point to this influence. So we got a group of rabbis that didn't exist prior to the Persian period, the Second Temple period. They are called the Pharisees, which they say means Perushim. Or sorry, it's from a word Perushim, which means separated or the separatist, which in itself is kind of peculiar. Anyway, or set aside. But in modern Hebrew is almost exactly the same as the word for Persian. Pharisi. If you Google translate the word Persian,
I would agree. Okay,
what you will get coming out is Pharisi.
and I'm not going to dispute that. It might be the case. Yes. So
You have this group who are talking about new ideas that the Sadducees, the scriptural purists, reject.
right.
Things that are emerging in the oral tradition, such as, like we mentioned, the resurrection of the flesh. Also, like other eschatological themes. And there's a paper by Sebastian Cote-Pabon who writes in a paper called Iranian Themes in Jewish Eschatology. So most of these ideas are eschatological ones, meaning things that happen in the future. Excuse me. So the idea of an end of days, an end of history, the idea of a savior figure to come at that time, angelology, demonology, the idea of these angels. Sorry, I've got a very tickly throat. So, for example, the prophet Daniel is the first one in the biblical corpus ever to give us the names of angels. So he introduces us to the angel Gabriel, to the angel Michael by name. Oh, but guess who he worked for? After having served the Babylonians, he served the Persians. First of all, I'm not saying Daniel was a real person. I've seen some very good evidence recently to suggest that the book of Daniel is a forgery. But that would actually support my case more because it's a later work that includes ideas that weren't core to Jewish thinking.
But the events described in the book of Daniel, were they historical or not? The mention of the kings that were mentioned in that book, were those
You mean in the dream? In the dream of the different
the
materials?
people that he was serving, the kings that he
I don't think so.
were those all fictional?
I think that they were written after the fact.
Well, you of course that would support your case.
Even the prophecies.